The widowed cowboy's baby was crying when someone knocked on the door. The Apache woman said, "I have milk." The baby had been crying for so long that Jonah Cole no longer remembered what silence felt like. The sound filled the small cabin, pressing against the rough wooden walls, seeping into his bones, scraping places inside him that were already raw. He paced the floor with careful steps, rocking the child against his chest the way the midwife had shown him before she rode away and never came back. The boy's tiny face was red, his fists clenched, his mouth opening again and again in desperate, wordless need. Jonah whispered to him, the same useless promises he had been repeating for days, that everything would be all right, that Pa was here, that Ma would have wanted him safe. The name caught in his throat every time. Mary had been gone less than 2 weeks, buried on the edge of the land she had loved. And already Jonah felt like he was failing her in the only way that mattered. The milk the neighbor woman had left had run out that morning. The baby rejected the watered-down substitutes Jonah tried, crying harder, his small body trembling with hunger. Jonah's hands, so steady when holding reins or a rifle, shook now with helplessness. He had faced storms, stampedes, and men with bad intentions, but nothing had prepared him for this quiet terror. The fear of watching his child suffer, because he did not know what to do. When the knock came at the door, it startled him so badly he nearly dropped the baby. The sound was firm but not demanding. A single knock followed by another, patient, as if whoever stood outside understood waiting. Jonah froze, his first instinct suspicion. Visitors did not come this far out without reason. He shifted the baby higher on his shoulder and moved toward the door, his boots heavy against the floor. Through the crack he saw a woman standing on the porch, her posture straight, her hands relaxed at her sides. She was Apache, her long black hair braided, her face calm in a way that made him uneasy. They stared at each other for a breath that felt longer than it was. The baby cried louder, a sharp wail that broke the moment open. The woman's eyes flicked to the child, and something softened in her gaze. "I heard him," she said quietly. Her voice was low, steady, not asking permission, not demanding it either. Jonah tightened his grip. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone rougher than he intended. She did not flinch. "I have milk," she said. The words were simple, almost plain, but they struck Jonah like a blow. He stared at her, disbelief mixing with a hope he was afraid to touch. He had heard stories, warnings whispered at trading posts and over campfires, stories that taught men to fear before they learned to see. He had also seen women bury children, had seen grief look the same on every face. His baby cried again, a thin, exhausted sound. The woman took a small step forward but stopped herself, respecting the line between them. "My name is Ayana," she said. "I lost a child too." Jonah swallowed. The porch boards creaked under his weight as he shifted. He looked down at his son, at the tiny mouth searching for comfort that was not there, and something inside him broke open. He opened the door wider. The cabin smelled of sweat and old wood and panic. Ayana stepped inside slowly, her movements careful, as if she were entering a sacred place. She did not reach for the baby until Jonah nodded, his jaw clenched. When she took the child, her hands were sure, practiced. The baby cried once more, then latched, the sound fading into quiet. Jonah felt his knees weaken as the silence settled, fragile and miraculous. He sank onto a chair, his face buried in his hands, breath shuddering out of him before he could stop it. He did not cry loudly. He had done too much of that already, alone in the dark. Instead, tears slipped down his face, hot and humiliating, as relief and grief tangled together inside his chest. Ayana sat across from him, feeding the child as if she had always belonged there. She did not speak, did not offer comfort with words. She simply stayed. Jonah watched her, noticing details he had missed before. The faint lines of sorrow at the corners of her eyes, the way her shoulders held a quiet strength, the respect in how she treated his home, his child. When the baby finished and drifted into sleep, she held him a moment longer, then placed him gently in Jonah's arms. Their fingers brushed, brief and electric. "He is strong," she said. Jonah nodded, unable to trust his voice. He did not ask why she had come or how she had known. Those questions felt smaller than the truth sitting between them. Outside, the land waited, wide and unforgiving. But inside the cabin, something had shifted. Jonah understood in that moment that survival was not always about doing things alone. Sometimes it was about opening a door when you least expected a knock. Ayana did not leave that day. She stayed through the afternoon, through the long stretch of shadows crawling across the cabin floor, through the baby's next waking and feeding, and the one after that. Jonah expected conversation, explanations, something to justify her presence, but she offered none unless he asked. In the quiet spaces between the child's breaths, Jonah found himself watching her the way a man watches fire, wary yet drawn, aware that it could warm or burn him depending on how close he stood. She moved around the cabin with careful respect, never touching anything that was not necessary, never acting as though she belonged, yet somehow making the space feel less empty. When the baby fussed, she knew before Jonah did. When Jonah's hands faltered, she corrected him without judgment, guiding rather than commanding. As evening settled in, Jonah finally spoke, his voice low, almost embarrassed. He told her Mary's name, how she had laughed too loud and loved too hard, how the birth had gone wrong, and how the silence afterward had been worse than any scream. Ayanna listened without interrupting, her face unreadable, but her eyes held the weight of understanding. When he finished, she told him of her own loss, a child taken by sickness during a hard winter, a pain that never truly left but learned to live quietly inside her. Their griefs did not match, but they recognized each other all the same. That night, Ayanna slept near the hearth, not as a guest, not as family, but as someone who had chosen to stay because leaving felt wrong. In the days that followed, her presence became a rhythm Jonah did not realize he needed. She came each morning, sometimes before dawn, sometimes with the sun already high, bringing milk, herbs, and knowledge passed down through generations. The baby grew calmer, stronger, his cries no longer desperate but demanding in the way of children who trust they will be answered. Jonah learned to breathe again. He learned that asking for help did not mean surrendering his strength. The land did not change, the hardships did not vanish, and the stares at town grew sharper when Ayanna walked beside him. But Jonah found that fear had less hold on him than before. One afternoon, weeks later, Ayanna stood at the door with her shawl wrapped tight, her eyes lingering on the child asleep in Jonah's arms. She told him it was time for her to return to her people. The words struck Jonah harder than he expected.